Okay, thank you, everybody. This is a good time to start. Today, we have Victor Ayegba here to speak with us on things concerning risk management and its effect on procurement strategies. We all know Victor, and he has been here before to talk to us about things around risk management, about things around how we control cost and report cost on our projects. But today, we are discussing another aspect of quantity surveying that is not normally looked at by most of us, and we think that it is a bit outside our purview as quantity surveyor. But risk is very critical and very important to the success of every project, and that is what Victor will be looking at for us today. And especially from the beginning, even before the project starts at all, from the time of procurement, how to design procurement strategy, and how to incorporate risk management into our procurement strategies to help us have a successful project. So I'll speak a little about Victor, then we can invite Victor to start and present to us on risk management and its effect on procurement strategies. As we are all aware, this is the webinar of the Nigerian Quantity Surveyor in Qatar. And this webinar is meant to expatiate more on area of risk management to us. So briefly on Victor. Victor Ayegba works with KEO International Consultants. He has over 20 years experience in quantity surveying, both in public and private sector, industry of Nigeria, in Seychelles, in the Middle East. Victor holds an MBA from Metropolitan Business School and Management, United Kingdom, and he also holds the Bachelor in Quantity Surveying. He's a Chartered Quantity Surveyor with MRICS status. As a professional quantity surveyor, I also has a professional quantity surveyor credential with Canadian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, Canada. He's a member of SAVE International, USA, and is a fellow with Quantity Surveyors International, FQSi. He's a vice president of Quantity Surveyors International, and Victor is a minister of God with Redeemed Christian Church of God, Qatar. Victor is happily married with children. So let us all welcome Victor Ayegba to present to us on the topic of risk management and its effects on procurement strategy. So Victor, the floor is for you, and you are welcome, and we thank you for having time to present to us. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much for the good job you are doing, my brother. We'll start right away. I would like to share my slide. Let me call again. Sorry, just 1 second. On screen. Window. Okay. I don't know if you can all see the screen. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So the introduction has been done, and we'll just start right away. As quantity surveyors, when risk management is mentioned, sometimes we begin to shy away from risk. Most quantity surveyors don't want to have anything to do with risk management because it's another aspect of the construction issues. And I would like to say, if you look at everything that has to do with risk, has to do with cost as well. So we need to pay attention to risk as it relates to us in the construction industry. And we're talking about its effect on procurement strategies. You know, all of us use various procurement strategies in our project delivery. So whatever procurement strategy you are using, it has a risk involved in there. So I just want us to relax, and it will be a different, we're looking at a different aspect now. We just look at what we are going to go through. Then I begin like this. The simplest definition of risk, what I have here is the possibility of something happening bad, something bad happening on a project. So when something bad happens, if you look at the primary objective of the client in embarking on a project, is value for money. Value for money. And if you look at the three areas where the client can get his value, is from the cost, is from the time, and is from the quality. So these three aspects that we have: the cost, the time, and the quality. And if you pick up time translates to cost, quality translates to cost as well. Then, this is what we've been faced with. But if you look at the procurement area, we're not talking about post-contract right now. Before embarking on the construction of works, a lot of tendering works are being done, procurement routes, selecting contractor, supply chain, the design team. So many things happen around this period before going to site. So you talk about the design, from design to construction, lack of integration. There is usually poor communication, uncertainties, changing environment, economic changes, inflation, deflation, regional economic crisis, greater competition in the construction sphere. These factors made the industry to seek for alternative procurement strategies.
Yeah, Victor, can you please move your make the slides move so we can see what you are discussing? You've only been on one page. Sorry for cutting in.
No, yes, I've been on one page. Can you see this page? What is risk? Can you see this page?
You're only on your first page. On your first.
Yes, I'm still there. I will move it.
Okay,
I'm still there. Yes. So the issue now is, do these procurement strategies of traditional routes, management contracting, design and construction, design and build, construction management and all that, do they really solve the problems of risk? Do these procurement strategies really mitigate the risk that we have during tendering? The answer is no. Then there is this guy, they call him Gavin Shaw. They had a similar CPD in New Zealand, and he was part of the panel that made the presentation on risk as it relates to procurement strategy. Gavin Shaw presented this very great picture that is before us. Gavin Shaw was just explaining that if you see this fish that is jumping from this other environment to another environment, it's like a project that is being released by the client. So the question is, there is risk. Is this fish going to enter the... Hello?
Sorry, please. One of the attendees is saying that if you click on the slides to show the tab, you are still on page 1. This where the title page, you are still there.
I'm still on page 1.
You are not moving.
Yes, that's what I tried to explain to you.
Okay.
And you can present it so that it won't just be as a page. Click on it as a slideshow.
You can present, you can present directly.
As a slideshow.
Okay, so I understand what he was saying. So as I move the pages, it's not showing.
No, yeah, I think you should just click on slideshow so that you can the slideshow can start. Okay,
Okay.
you're on what is risk now.
Okay.
We are not presenting as a slideshow yet.
Okay. Let me see. Slideshow. Where is slideshow?
Yes.
Because that is exact slideshow is what I've done.
Oh, at the bottom, can look at the bottom.
Yes, bottom right.
Bottom right, yes.
Yes,
It's not showing
slideshow.
a slideshow. It's not.
It's not showing as slideshow.
Yes, please. Okay, but if it's not showing, maybe you can just be clicking
Because
on
I
it.
click slideshow and I'm moving the arrow.
Okay, click on the slideshow again. Click on it. Click on it. Let's see.
Okay, let me move the page. Can you see now?
It's not moving.
It's not moving.
So click on the slideshow.
Okay.
Okay, the slideshow it's not even starting.
Okay, if I don't click on the slideshow and I move the page, are you seeing?
Okay, it's moving now. Okay. So we are on the page where you're talking about Garden Shore.
Okay, so maybe we can, but it's not clear like this. Okay, maybe what I'll do is to just increase the percentage and see.
Okay.
Is it?
All right. Okay, it's okay.
It's okay. Maybe we can go like this.
Yes.
Okay.
So you click on the page as you go on each of the pages.
Okay. So I've talked about this.
If you go to the top of the screen, there is view. Click on view, and then I think it's F9. You can use it to do the presentation.
View F9.
It's not. Is it coming up now? Have you done?
Don't worry. Just go ahead with what you do now. Since it's working now, let's go ahead with that.
So if you click view, yeah, maybe I don't know. Is this
Okay,
one? No.
Just leave it where how you leave it on the pages. Go back to the home page and just continue clicking on the pages.
Okay.
You just have additional work to do.
Okay.
Just go back to the home page to the file home and just continue from there so that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So I was talking about Gavin Shaw.
Yes.
Is the general manager of project strategy. So he presented this picture. So it's like he released this picture to demonstrate the risk in the industry. Like the client has released the project, and the project is going to a place where you cannot determine the next destination. You cannot determine the destination, whether where it's going is going to be more conducive than where the concept is coming from, or is going to fall away. So that is what project is. So as soon as the client, call the parties to come and look at the project, you have the designer, you have the consultants, you have the contractor, you have everyone coming on board, all the design consultants coming on board. There is greater risk there. Greater risk. The designers, they can have design problem issues. They can, that they will cover. One greatest issue here is that all the designers, they could have risk. That is the lack of transparency among the design team, where they know that they faulted and there is no declaration of the risk. It becomes a problem. And this problem is, at the end of the day, all the problems from design team, from all the M&E, the architect, the structural, all the design team that we have, these issues, this risk is being transferred to the quant surveyor to prepare an estimate. So how are these risks allocated? If there is lack of transparency, there is that difficulty in knowing how to allocate the risk in the industry. So we move ahead again to another picture that creates a background for us. You are working in someone else's shoe. The designer will put something on the drawing and is hiding something and is telling you, oh, you can put a provisional sum, you can put this, you can allocate this, you can price this, you can use your experience, but you do not know what is going to be at the end of the day. You can put 1 million. At the end of the day, in your estimate, it can become 5 million. It can become 10 million. You do not know. Why? Because there is lack of transparency. Everybody is hiding its own professional inefficiency, So this is what is happening. Everyone is working in someone else's shoe. Then you look at the risk generally according to Project Management Book of Knowledge, Guide 6th edition. They put how risks are being managed generally in the construction industry. The first one is you have to first of all plan the risk. You have to identify the risk. How do you identify the risk? We all know all this that we have here. All the parties have to sit down. You have to bring a risk register. You have to have a workshop to say what are the risks you have in your relevant field. So everybody will have to write their risk and say, okay, let's put this, prepare this register. Then there will be qualitative risk analysis, quantitative to see which one translates to that, this one translates to that. And you have to plan the risk responses. You categorize them to say, oh, this one is high, this one is medium, this one is low, and all that. Then you have to start implementing the risk. And at the same time, these risks have to be monitored. This is the general understanding of risk that we have. And I've just mentioned that, the concerns of the clients in the construction industry is that there should be a balance, between cost, time, and quality. This is a concern of the client. If the cost doesn't go well, if in the tendering during the procurement stages, if it's not handled very well, if everything is not handled, the risks are not well identified and allocated, you discover that it will affect cost, it will affect time, and it will affect quality. Then we move on to look at, the various procurement strategies that we have. We have the traditional method, we have the lump sum and the remeasurement or measure and value and all that. And according to this is adopted, this diagram you're seeing is adopted from RICS Guidance Note 1, 1st edition, UK GN 109, 2013. This line that you see, the thick line that you see is the contract line. And the dotted line is the limited agency powers, the powers, how the architect has power over the contractor, and the client has to sign a contract with the architect, sign agreement with the quantity surveyor, the structural designer, and others, and the contractor has contract with the suppliers and all that. So in a traditional setup, we have various risks as well. There's poor certainty of price, all price, there is no supply chain. You have various potential, the relationship between architect and the quantity surveyors may not be okay. Relationship between the quantity surveyor and the structural engineer, relationship between architect, structural engineer. So they have their own shortcomings. So all these are the disadvantages that are allocated to that are applicable to traditional method. If they are not properly handled during the tendering stage, they would pose a kind of risk to the entire project. Then we move on to the design and build. The design and build, we all know, it has its own issue of quality, because the contractor designs and the contractor constructs. Contractor has a contract with the client, has contract with all the designers, the QS, and the other subcontractors and all that. So quality could be compromised because the contractor is having contract with all the professionals that we have here, and he's the one that is constructing. So in that case, and there is a level of control, okay, maybe from the client's agent, could come and supervise the contractor, but the level of control can be limited, but because the contractor is a main person in design and build contract. So we go to the construction management. Also, we have issue of price certainty here, where the construction management, you see that the client has a contract with all the professionals and also with the trade contractors. The price certainty, if there is any issue with the client, if the client, is not informed about is not given some information, the client will not be able to take the right decision that will deliver the project. So we go also to management contracting. Management contracting is a little bit similar but different from construction management, in that the client has a contract with the management contractors and also the professionals that we have in the team. And also we have the partnering arrangement. The partnering arrangement is not really a procurement route, but it's just a collaboration between the business partners in such a way that they can deliver the project with various arrangements, either to combine any of the standard procurement routes or any way that they can devise to establish business between themselves. Then we go to the public-private partnership. This one, is not very common in our construction industry, but it's also happening between government, partnering with designers, partnering with contractors, suppliers, operators, to say, okay, government to say, okay, we give you land, bring your money to construct, we give you land at the subsidized rate, this, that, and a project also can be delivered. Then it comes to mind that in the current situation, by Stewart Riggs, in his presentation, so many questions have been asked. The question is, who pays for the risk encountered? Who is the person that pays for the risk encountered? If the risk that is, that happens with relations to procurement strategy, who pays for it? Then, in terms of risk transfer and risk management, what do we understand by good risk management? What do we understand by good risk management? What do we understand by good risk management? Then the other one is, bespoke contract. The question here is, why do we create this? And deviate from standard conditions of contract? Why do we create bespoke contract? Why do we go away from the main contract? Why do we have to adjust the standard contract? This question is yet to be answered. You can go to various countries, instead of them to adopt the standard form of contract, the standard conditions of contract, they do not follow the standard contract. What they do is, to reduce one clause and to add another clause. Then another one is, with the latest technology tools available for managing risk, do we know how to use them? The various tools that are available for managing risk in the construction industry, how do we have the knowledgeability to operate these tools? Can we use this tool to manage the risks that we have in the construction industry? Can we track this risk? Can we use the tools to identify? Can we use the tools to analyze? Can we use how many professionals are knowledgeable enough to use the tools that are available in the construction industry today? Then another one is deficiency of skills. When you're preparing tender, you discover that we have a lot of professionals in the client's team, that are not well skilled. You have a lot of professionals in the consultant team that are not well skilled. So what they do, everyone will have to cover his own side. There is still lack of transparency in saying, oh, this is my assumption, this is my exclusions, to make it clear so that people can, so that the risk professionals, will be able, so that they can really identify the risk on the project and make provision for them, mitigate against them. So there are deficiency of skill. Somebody will be doing, he may not understand, what he's doing, that at the end of the day or at the end of the project is going to cause a lot of problems. If you look at this deficiency of skills, sometimes you go to on a post-contract project, when you're on a post-contract, you discover that you've been given a lot of contract documents, you have the tender circular, tender queries, tender responses, but at the end of the day, when you try to marry them with the entire contract documents, there are so many things that are not aligning. You discover a lot of ambiguities because the contracts are not well put together. So there are deficiency of skills with the client team, there are deficiency of skills with the designers organization, there are deficiency of skills with the contractors team. If you discover, there's a project, working on, you have an experience, you discover that, okay, the client say, okay, the contractor, a good example is that the contractor is supposed to select, a particular material out of the options that are available. So the contractor went ahead and selected a particular material out of the options available and he priced them. So what happened is that during post-contract, the question is, why did you select this? Which of the material did you price? Now the contractor is now saying, oh, I've selected both. But after selecting that material, it's not indicated in the BOQ to say, this is the type of material I priced. So the contractor is now trying to look for an avenue where he can hide and say, oh, I priced the cheapest. No, I priced no. The contractor will definitely not agree to say he priced the highest. So it will bring a lot of confusion, a lot of ambiguities in the project delivery. So deficiency of skills are available. People are not, those in the client's team may not be knowledgeable to prepare the documents, or the documents are being prepared by the professionals that are submitted to the client's team. They will not have understanding of interpreting them and say, oh, how do we identify where the consultants have made risk allocation in this tender? No, they may not. If there are deficiency of skills, all these issues will not be identified during the tender. Then you look at the behavior of teams, of the team members. You look at, in the construction environment, you discover that, the client has a behavior, the consultants have a behavior, the designers have a behavior, and, the contractor have a behavior. And all this behavior, boils down to lack of transparency. Nobody wants to show his risk. They can only show risk where it's beneficial to them, but risks that is against the client are not being declared. So, and this is a very big issue currently in the construction industry. The contractors believe that, oh, I have to hide this risk. I have to wait. When we get to post-contract, if I'm being awarded a contract, I have to look for a variation. Issues are supposed to be identified, to be really priced, during the tender, because the contractor is competing with others and he wants to get the job. So most of the risks are being hidden. Then again, there is low level of trust. And why are they so low? Why do we have so many level of trust? If you, the tenderers, they submit their documents and you're going through, the consultants, they check the documents with great level of doubt because there is lack of trust, in the team. So this is another big issue because, all the contractor is looking for a way that will be beneficial to him against the client. And the client is always thinking, oh, the contractor is putting this cost, maybe he's hiding something. So there is great level of lack of trust, within the team, within the professionals. Then we begin to talk about the capacities, Do you have enough staff? Do you have enough staff to carry on tender, to prepare tender? Do you have the knowledgeability and abilities, to be able to select the right procurement route? You have the knowledgeability to select the right contractor, to do tender analysis, to be able to say, to be able to look at, do you have the right knowledgeability to look at the account statement, statement of account submitted by the contractor, to be able to say, the contractor is liquid. Do you have this knowledge to be able to deliver? So these are various questions, various questions that need answers. The financial strength of the client. Are we sure the client has enough money to complete the project? Are you sure the client has made provision for that will be enough to take care of issues that will be coming up, as the project goes on? We do think the client to be able to take has a finance to say, this project has gone 10% more than the estimated contract sum. You think the client has the capacity? He has the capacity to be able to support the contractor during the construction stage. Then you look at the financial strength of the contractor. Okay, if there is delay in payment, the risk is that the client is a contractor liquid enough to say, he can carry on the project in case there is any delay in payment, that the contractor will be able to sustain the project until the client is able to, maybe pay up, maybe any outstanding certificates have been issued to the client. Then you look at the supply chain again as well. The supply chain, do they have the capacity? Do they have the financial strength to be able to deliver, to be able to supply, so that the project can move smoothly? Then, if you look at we look at the major effects of risk management on procurement strategy. The first one I have here is inaccurate cost estimates. On all that I've talked about, the question here is that, if there is lack of transparency, that the contractor is beginning to, after getting the drawings, study the drawings and putting on pricing the document, even from the QS side, do you have enough information, or is your estimate full of provisional sums? Is it full of, you allow some for this, allow some for that, because you don't have enough information? If there is a clear transparency, you can easily allocate risk in such a way that from the onset, the client will be able to make provision. There will be a uniform submission of tenders, of estimate from the various tenderers. If this is not known, if there are things that all the design team are hiding that you cannot know or you cannot determine, or as a result of lack of professional knowledge or errors from them, and these are not declared, at the end of the day, whatever estimate that we are going to submit will be highly inaccurate. And at the same time, from all the questions you've asked, what this transcends to is that if you don't have the knowledge of selecting contractors or supply chain, at the end of the day, it will be a problem. Maybe the right contractor that is supposed to be the person to be appointed or selected for the project will now be wrongly selected. Then also, because of this, the risk on the project, on tender, on procurement route, can lead to delay in project delivery as well. This risk can go in ripple effects. It can go in delay in project delivery. And if there is a delay in project delivery, it also translates to a whole lot of things. It translates to provisional sum, when the client is supposed to, it translates to prolongation costs. When the client is expected to take over delivery of the project, the client will not be able to take over the delivery of project. And as I say, the major objective of the client is to have value for his money. and this is time to time. So you look at the, if the risk in a project, the effect will be, abandonment of projects. If the projects are not well packaged, and at the end of the day, maybe the projects are loaded, upfront, the costs are loaded upfront, and after paying advance payment, after paying advance payment, maybe some preliminary action, you discover that the contractor start complaining of fund. And if you have carried out an assessment on the project, on the construction on site, you discover that nothing much have been achieved. Then you look at also delay in project commencement. If the procurement strategies, all that we looked at, if there is wrong selection or a particular one is being selected and the risks that are allocated to that particular procurement route, they are not well mitigated, it should definitely lead to delay in project commencement, and at the same time, it will go to delay in project completion at the same time. There is issue of bad contract drafting. Bad contract drafting. You can look at some contracts, some contracts are not well drafted. We talked about bespoke contract now, because they are not standard contracts. They are not being tested. Most of the bespoke contracts are being created or being packaged, for a specific project. So at the end of the day, you discover that there are some clauses that will be missing, and if you are in part of that project, you discover that all these issues, a lot of issues will be coming, that you start looking for contract clauses to back your claim, and you will not be able to justify them. Then at the end of the day, what it leads to contractual disputes. And you know what contractual dispute is all about? It can lead to litigation, it can lead to adjudication, arbitration, and other forms of settlement that we have in the industry. And we look at HSE issues, we look at liquidation, we've talked about most of these issues. Then we are looking here at, there is this lady who was part of the team, a CPD that they had on risk on procurement management. Her name is Sue Moss. She came with her own presentation that has to do with risk allocation. The question she asked was that, what is the best tool to allocate, to use in allocating risk? What is the best tool? And she was particular with this current pandemic that we have today. How do we allocate risk? There should be special conditions that limit the contractor to claim for extension of time due to pandemic. So he's just looking at it that, the effect of, because if you look at now, the contractors, in our own environment or, maybe other part of the world now, what is happening now because of the COVID, everybody is looking at the clause and looking, do we have pandemic in the contract? Do we have any provision for pandemic in the contract? Yeah, do you have it in your contract? I don't have it. I don't have anything pandemic. What do we have? How can we deal with this issue? These are the various questions that are going on now, because there is no special conditions, that can limit the contractor in submitting extension of time due to pandemic. So he's suggesting that we should try and allocate a special condition, to create a special condition that will limit contractors to make claim for extension of time due to pandemic like we have in COVID. Then the lady went to say, okay, attempts to de-risk contracts. What are the attempts, to de-risk contracts? He said, we should insert clauses to give time, but no cost to the contractor. You can give time to the contractor, but no cost. That is her own suggestion. She's saying that we should put a clause, in the contract to say that, yes, to mitigate against all this risk, during tender, we should put a clause, because most of the things that happens, claims that come, the contractor is always looking for extension of time. If if after, most of it, sometimes you see the contractor, they're very smart, sometimes they send extension of time requests without prolongation costs, where they give you that first, and when the extension of time is being approved, the next thing you're going to see huge prolongation costs. But it's good for us to discuss. We can discuss this during the Q&A section. Then the other one is clauses to terminate at specific stages, usually early, should there be a pandemic. She is suggesting that we should try and terminate, like during this pandemic, maybe pandemic started December 2019, then the construction works are going on. Maybe as the pandemic continues to spread, there should be a clause to say after 3 months, after 6 months, if the pandemic continues, let's terminate the contract. Then, if everything normalizes, then you can come back and say, yes, let's reevaluate and go back to site. This is our own suggestion. Then, she also put forward, effects of risk, on procurement strategy. Of course, we know that it will lead to increase in the primary cost in tender, and it's also saying that there should be insurance against pandemic-related suspensions. There should be insurance against pandemic-related suspensions. And she also mentioned that, there should be, poorly drafted special conditions lead to increased disputes, when the special conditions that we add to the standard conditions, when they are poorly drafted, a lot of disputes are being issued. So I will go to the last slide now. So he's saying, future suggestions. The question here, this one picked me, and he said we should have an alternative procurement route that move past cheapest is the best. Cheapest is the best. The question here is cheapest is the best, but is cheapest usually the best at the end of the day? My answer to this question is no. Cheapest is not usually the best, but how is it possible for us to move, past this issue, cheapest is the best? You have 5 tenderers. One submits 100 million. Another one submits 50 million. Another one submits 20 million. Hey, of course, because 20 million is the cheapest, so you award the contract to the cheapest. But is cheapest the best? Are we sure that this 20 million will not transform to 100 million at the end of the contract? So the suggestion is that there should be an alternative procurement route that looks at what is being in the past and will be able to solve the problems or the risks that we have currently in the existing procurement routes. So the other suggestion is that there should be effective risk workshops prior to tendering. Let everyone be honest. Let everyone be trustworthy. There should be workshops where people will come and talk. People will come and, before tendering, all the parties, the client representatives, the consultants, the contractor, the supply chain, everybody will be part of this workshop to say, oh, this project is going to happen. And this workshop is, majorly to target the risk that we are going to encounter on this project, and let everybody be free. If you are a contractor on this call, you should be free enough to tell the client, tell the consultants where the risks are, in terms of construction. You should be able to say, oh, you need this, you need that. Not that you wait until post-contract and you get to that point and you start sending notice of claim, and you start sending costs, to claim, and start making requests for extension of time, and you start sending prolongation costs. So prior to this tendering, there should be an effective, well-organized workshop that will be able to take care of all the risks that we have during the tender stage. Then there should be a closer working, closer collaboration, closer working with the choosing contractor to allocate risk efficiently. The contractor, the client team should be close enough to the contractor in such a way that will say, okay, yes, tell me the risk. Let's identify the risk that you are going to encounter, in this tender, so that let's know. Let's study the drawings. Let's study this thing. Let's study everything. Let's study everything closely. Just 1 second, please. Go out, please. So let there be close working relationship with the chosen contractor to allocate risk efficiently. So in that case, there'll be close collaboration. There'll be issues that the contractor will be able to point out. All the contractors will be able to point out. Everybody will identify. So you'll be able to compare from all the tenderers to say, okay, this one has given this risk, this one has given this one did not see this one did not see this. So the client and the consultant, the design professionals will be able to put this risk together, and they'll be able to mitigate it even before the commencement, even before the issuance or packaging of the tender documents. Then there should be the lady also, Sue Moss, also suggested that there should be active risk management to replace risk reporting. Most of the time, risks are being reported, but what do we do after that? So there should be active risk management team, that will continue to be from, during that standard stage, from the beginning until the end, till when the tender submission is being completed, and even at post-contract, there should be active risk management team to replace mere risk reporting. I think with this, I have come to the end of my presentation, and it's time for question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. We are indeed grateful for this awesome time that we have had, and this you refreshing us about risk all over again, and some extent, and taking us on a new journey of what to look for in future when it comes to the field of risk management. We are indeed grateful for your time and the knowledge that you have shared with us. So everyone on the platform, it is time for question and answer. If you have questions to ask, if you have comments to add to what we have discussed today, this is the time for you to come forward, and you can do that by raising up your hand. You can also do that by writing in the chat box, and the question will be passed on to Victor to comment, so we can start from there. As we go on, I'd just like to add a comment. For all of us, if you have not even gained anything today being here, what is most important for us to have at least picked up in all that Victor has done for us today is the thing about the future suggestions. At least that we'll go over it again, and we'll see how we can incorporate that into our daily life practice as quantity surveyors, as commercial managers, as contract managers, whether you are working for the client, you're working for the contractor, you're working for the consultant, or in any field or in any position that you're working in the construction and engineering industry. So let us just pick those future suggestions, and let us see how we can use that on a daily basis. So thank you. So let's start looking at the questions that we are seeing. I think there's a comment in the chat box. Let me look at it. So somebody is saying, thank you, Mr. Victor, for the rich information. We do really appreciate. That is from Basma Abdel. We thank you for your contribution. If you have questions, let us just indicate. You can write in the chat box, or we can raise our hand. While we wait for the questions, I'd like to ask a question of my own. So the question is to Victor. For younger quantity surveyors that are on this platform or that will have the opportunity to look at this, to watch this video in future, how would you advise them concerning procurement strategy? Where should they start from when they're advising their client on the procurement strategy to adopt for any type of project at all? What should be a general rule of thumb that can form guidance to them in future procurement and designing procurement strategies for their clients? You can please respond.
Yeah, thank you so much. For the younger QAs that are coming up, first of all, you need to really understand procurement strategy, the procurement routes that we have. And, all these procurement strategies we looked at, they don't work for some kind of projects. They work for specific, different kind of projects. If you look at government projects, majorly they use the traditional method. And, there are some projects that the client requires, a short duration of time for the project to be completed. So in those kind of projects, that is tagged to time, that will say, oh, time is of the essence, so those kind of projects you use design and build. So for the younger QS, you cannot begin to talk about risk when you don't really understand these procurement strategies. Most QSs, some of them start from post-contract, but it is advisable for us to really understand all the procurement strategies, the tendering, the tendering procedures, tender procedures, tender documentation, tender analysis, tender reporting. They need to really do a good study for them to really have understanding and have the experience, ask the right questions, and write what is being involved. So another one is for them also, to deviate from the issue of provisional sum. When we started in Nigeria, everything we just lump it up and say provisional sum. We are supposed to do the work ourselves. We're supposed to go to the market, and these days quant surveyors don't go to the market to even price or call or do anything. We just go to the data and say, oh, if it's this, we just prorata and we just go there. So we really need to go into the nitty-gritty, of understanding what procurement and tendering is all about. Procurement and tendering is an interesting part, but most QSs they believe that, oh, if I know how to use AutoCAD, I am a QS. No, it doesn't make you a QS. You need to go to the background. You need to understand all the tendering procedures, all the procurement routes. You need to have that understanding. Then with that understanding and in mind, then if you are trying to, go into these issues that we are talking about, then you'll be able to solve a lot of problems. You'll be able to ask questions, and you'll be able to deliver professionally. I think that is the best I can say for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the response. We thank you for expanding on this idea and guiding the younger QS. Even this, your response is even adequate for the experienced QSs to adopt it going forward in their professional life. Now, we have two questions. The first one is from Mr. Adidapo. His question is this. He said, how realistic is a scenario where risk workshop is held prior to the start of a project, that is at pre-tender stage? Does it not portend a situation whereby the consultant is seen as ill-prepared? Maybe I can paraphrase what he's asking. He says, what he's asking more or less is, if we start risk management before the work starts, does it not show a situation where the consultants appear to be ill-prepared?
Yeah, that was it's a very good question. It's a very good question. If we need to be honest with ourselves, we discover that during the tendering stage is a very big issue. The client knows that there are some information that are the hands of the contractor. The client knows that. This contractor has a supply chain already. He has where he can get pipes. He has where he can get all the machines. He knows the delivery time. Most of the meetings we attend with the client, you attend with the contractor, you see the client asking the contractor themselves, what is the delivery time what is the lead time of this equipment? So the client also depend on the contractor. The contractor is the one that gives the realistic date of project delivery. Assumptions, everything is in their hands. The consultant is limited. If you look at the constructability, the designers can design, the consultants can manage, but if you look at the constructability of the project, it's in the hands of the contractor. So if the client knows that, if the client is looking at it that, it's inefficiency of the consultant, he knows that, the client knows that at the end of the day, he's going to be faced with variations. So it's even at the end, it's even good for the consultant to advise the client that it's necessary for us to have a workshop so that all the risk, that is allocated, that will come up, in this tender, will be minimized, will be mitigated at the tendering stage. Is what we are discussing now, I do not think it's happening. Even if it's happening, I don't think it's common because I have not attended a risk management workshop during tender. So if anybody is on the call that has attended before, you can say it was just a future suggestion to ensure that the project is properly packaged, the project is properly priced, and a clear to realistic date and cost, a near to realistic, something that is near, something that is close to realistic cost, realistic time, realistic quality is being attained. So it will not have anything, it will not demean the consultant. If they make a suggestion, they suggest to the clients for this pre-tender workshop to be held. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Victor, for that.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
May I comment there? Yes, the first is on the last question. It's a very intelligent question, but I need to make it clear. Victor has helped us, but in fact, to be very clear, the consultant knows what he's doing. He's actually competent. It is part of risk management planning to have a risk workshop before the tender is floated. It's a very intelligent consultant that does that. So I think the short answer is that it is the best thing to do. The second one is on procurement strategies to be advising upcoming cases on procurement strategies and risks. I will understand that one of the processes of risk management is to plan risk response. And the essence of planning risk responses is to, after identifying the risk, there should have been a risk management plan in place. The risks are identified and they are analyzed. After the risk management, that is the risk analysis, then comes the risk responses. So the procurement rules are actually used, and the contracts too that are attached to them are used to respond to risks. And that is why the different rules apply to different situations. We are managing three constraints: time, cost, and quality. And so, depending on the attitude of the client on what constitutes a project success as defined by the client, that is what will determine the route that you choose. A client now that is particular about cost and knows that he has enough time, if he's particular about cost, he wants to, he doesn't want to compromise on his quality, and he knows that he has enough time. It will take time to design. own responsibility for the design. He will have, done everything to make sure. So he goes to the traditional route. But the one that doesn't have enough time will want to go to design and build. And there are a lot of other things to do to plan risk responses into even design and build. Talking about warranties, the guarantees, all the bonds and insurances, all these ones too are responding to risks that have been identified. So, we don't really have enough time to be discussing all this, but I just want to bring it out there that the procurement rules are planned as a risk response strategy. So, I hope that throws more light on what has been said before. Thank you.
Please, if you also give me audience, please let me just respond.
Okay, we have a comment from Mr. Abraham. Please go ahead.
Yeah, please, if you just give me a response just on the same subject that Mr. Nuruddin just talked about, which is whether the risk management workshop is viable at pre-tender stage. Obviously, because the whole subject starts from project development strategy. First and foremost, whatever strategy you put in place is to answer a question. Somebody wants to build a house because he has a housing need. Somebody needs to do an office complex because he has a need. Now, at project development strategy, the first thing is that how can this need be properly met? So, can he rent or should he do a new one? If he wants to do a new one, does he have the time? Does he have the money? Or what kind of quality is being looked at? So at the project development strategy, this is when the actual risk management starts from. So you begin to answer a lot of issues. If we say we want to build a new one, how long will it take? Will there be time for him to meet his needs? If there is no need for it, what other options are available? This is very important, just like the chairman has said, that yes, the actual project strategy that our procurement strategy has been adopted is actually a response, not a response to the needs to be met. The other issue I would like to speak about is the questions or the suggestion that the lady made in the third or second slide of your presentation, that cheapest is the best, whether there should be an alternative procurement route. It's not a question of procurement. The question is, it is a question of advising policymakers, especially in government, because we have dealt with individuals who don't take the cheapest. They just want who will meet their expectations, because by the time you are able to put together the cost of having to hire a poorly equipped contractor who is not prepared, by the time you now terminate a contract and bring another contractor on board, the cost may be bigger than what the second best contractor will have taken as at that material time for him to answer your job. So it's not question of the cheapest is the best. It's question of professional making it, presenting it to people or their clients that look, this cheapest, there are risks. Normally, that is why we write risk management report at the end of every tender. This guy is the cheapest, but these are his deficiencies. This guy is the second cheapest, these are his deficiencies, because every tender report contains all this. But you will advise, but government policy and everybody's policy virtually that, they said this guy will take 18 million. Why are you going for 20 million? But nobody wants to see what may happen if any of the identified risk about this guy who is asking for 18 million. If it happens, it may cost 5 million, meaning that it's now more than 20 million, which is the second. So it's a question of we professional advising that cheapest is not always the best. It's not a question of procurement route, because every procurement route have an inbuilt, at the time of tender analysis stage, you must analyze all of this. And that's my little contribution for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abraham. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We thank you for your contribution and additional information in this regard. We have a question here from Mr. Lukman Odunlami. He said, where an unpriced BOQ states that a particular material or an alternative material, or alternatives should be priced. How can a tender indicate in the tender the specific? How can a tenderer indicate in the specific item he actually priced? I mean, price for the actual material or the alternative at the time of procurement now. Then there's a second question. I think we can just take the two at the same time so that we don't waste time. Can we as professionals, that's from Mr. Yaya, can we as professionals take all the stakeholders along in our risk management to avoid, there are some issues that they discussed above where the projects are going to suffer. So, and what he feels is that in the project management approach on those projects, all the stakeholders were not carried along. So his question now is, can we as professionals take all stakeholders along in our risk management to avoid failures in projects and construction projects generally? So we have two questions.
The one Lukman is asking is asking whether an on-price bill. What I mentioned was what has happened on the project. That there are various options, and out of the options, the contractor decides to choose one. And after choosing one, because the preamble to that item in the bill of quantity does not specify the material. You say, okay, the contractor can select, and the contractor can get approval, based on the selection from the engineer. But the contractor did that. He selected a particular material, but the contractor did not indicate that this is the material they selected, and he put a price in there. So the question is, okay, if you look at the drawing has the specification. The specification on the drawing is different from the specification in the project specification. So there is a ambiguity. So the contractor now is saying, oh, I selected this, I selected that. So what is the justification? So the contractor did not actually, from the onset during tender, it did not state the type of material that it has put in there. So it has to do with skills, it has to do with rush in submission of tender, it has to do with maybe low level of trust that we all mentioned, that this can be the reason we don't know. So it can be referred to as an error on every part or something, So because if you look at it, there is a price, but what did you price? So at that particular point in time, whatever the contractor say he price, there is no justification. So these are issues that we face during construction. So I think the one of Yaya is only giving an advice, right? That all the stakeholders must be carried along. He's only giving an advice that all the stakeholders must be carried along. I don't think it's a question. Is it a question?
There's a question mark at the end. He said, we carry along everybody. I think I agree with what your position, what you're saying is we need to carry everybody along. It should be more of a statement so that to avoid all of those failures that you say. But you can expatiate on that, please.
Okay, carrying everybody along, that is what we're saying. That, okay, how can you have an equipment on the project and that has a lead time of how many months, and the project completion date is less than the project lead time of the equipment that you're going to deliver. So everyone should be carried along, and this one will happen before tendering. If you have this kind of open tendering, where you invite a whole lot of contractors, or even selective tendering, you can still invite them. Let everybody be carried along. As you issue these documents, There'll be questions here and there. There'll be tender queries. Tender queries will be coming. As the tender queries are coming, there'll be tender responses here and there. So during that time, a lot of questions could be asked. You have to carry the contractors. The contractor will give you a list of subcontractors. You get list of subcontractors, suppliers, and all that. So if all the stakeholders are being carried along at that stage, there will be a whole lot of transparency in packaging the contract. I don't know if I've spoken something. If you ask any question, you can ask more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Victor. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Do we have other questions from here? While we're waiting for other questions, you can just signify by raising your hand, or you can type in the chat box. I will just concur more with what Victor has said, that for us to have effective risk management, we need to carry everybody along. We need to ensure that all the information that is required that can help to manage risk on the project is brought forth as early as possible, and we ensure that we address all of them. One of those things that we can call risk management tool is that you carry the risk from the beginning, from the time you note it through your risk identification strategies or processes, and you continue to manage and maintain and check and recheck the risk and see, whether the risk can go through the process of the entire chain of the contract, and when to, manage it, to take it off, when to classify it and put it as severe, non-severe, and all of that. And what we have experienced and what is the reality of things is that as you go towards the end of the project, it is easier to manage the risk. As you go towards the end of the project, the things that can crystallize as risk has become more reduced, right? So from the beginning of the project, you start to tick off, you start to remove from your risk management list or your risk register. This one cannot happen again. This can still happen. Where do we classify it? How do we monitor it? How do we say put it on the watch list and things like that? And continue to manage all of those identified risks all through the life of the project. So you have your handover and even up to maintenance and the use of the asset or project that is created at the end. That's just my small contribution at this stage. Do we have other comments, remarks?
Okay, maybe I have one more comment.
Please.
And that's about the question. That's about the question on pricing tender without specifying or how to specify the item for which price is started in the tender. The fact is that we have the Qatar standard specification, QCS, data construction specification here. Which makes it easier. If the tender documents are not clear about what items are to be priced, there is a minimum requirement which everybody should work towards. So the contractor will be right by not specifying any particular item if he meets the specifications. So the onus is on the client if he needs a particular brand to specifically mention it there. That is why we have the vendors list, the preferred vendors list. If all these are not used, it is the client that is at fault. That means his tender documents are not clear. The contractor can only help himself further to avoid a dispute. Maybe, during tender, maybe if he wants to avoid dispute, he can insert it there at a price for this particular brand, so that in the future he can make a reference to it. He doesn't have to do it. That's my comment on that.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for the contribution. And that is additional information regarding pricing of bills of quantities and how to use the entire contract document in a case where you have maybe discrepancy amongst them. You should interpret it according to the contract and look for the minimum requirements. If you have to use another part of the contract document to support the other one to find explanation or to find justification. We thank you very much. Do we have other comments, questions? Or we can just move to a recap and close for the day. Questions, comments, addition? Okay.
Bolari, but just for the chairman, with respect to the answer that he gave regarding the different procurement routes are being used to mitigate risk. I would like us, just like him to stretch further that, there is no procurement route that doesn't have its own disadvantages. So that is why we have this general recommendation so that they can all take care of the risks that we have during tender. I don't know, Nuri, if you're hearing me, because if you look at traditional routes, it has its own disadvantages. Same with design and build, management, contracting, construction management, and all that. So if you say, okay, all these procurement routes have been designed to solve to mitigate against some of these risks, but then they also have their own disadvantages which can affect the project as well. And that is why you see Sue suggested that there should be an alternative procurement route.
Okay, Victor, if I may answer you that instead of Nuruddin, there can be no alternative procurement route. The truth is that wherever, like you rightly said, in every procurement route, there are inherent advantages and disadvantages. So now we said at project development stage, that is when we now start making plans to answer a question or the needs of a client, we sit down as part of our risk management strategy to plan how best can we respond to the question or to the need of this man. And this is when the risks are analyzed. Which one is best? It doesn't mean that the one choosing does not have disadvantages. This is like which one is best that can answer this man's question.
Okay.
So with the cost that everyone have it in that, because now RIC has shifted from this provisional sum and what have you to risk allowance. Now, like if the risk are analyzed, responses are developed, and prices are put at the end of the day, so we know how much. Anyone we cross, we say, okay, this is gone, this is gone. So, like you rightly said, towards the end of the project, so the risks are clear. So if we still have the allowance, which is traditionally they will say it is a provisional sum or provisional allowance to manage risk or contingency. Now, when we have something like that, we know that, okay, we are at this stage of the project, this is how far we have gone, and we have responded to it. There are still others that may come. Like you rightly said, issue of EOT may come, a contractor may submit an EOT request, you may just give him EOT request only for you to receive prolongation cost. After that, dispute may arise at the tail end of the project. So it is not a question of whether there is no risk in any of the procurement route. There are risks. So that's what we are saying.
Thank you so much, sir. But before Bolari will come up again, is it a good advice to have this risk workshop?
If you check project development strategy, risk workshop comes when eventually you have decided, okay, we need to make a new project. Okay, where it is suggested, okay, we cannot rent a shop or a workshop or an office space, but this company or this individual, we need his own. So now we said, okay, what are the different procurement routes? I mean, what kind of quality is he looking for? What kind of budget is he making available? And I mean, the budget, the cost, and the quality. So in answering all of these, you as a consultant may develop how you think best this can be met. So in order for everybody to be carried along from the beginning, you can have this workshop and say, hey, this is what you need. This is my plan to achieve this. Criticize whichever one you want to criticize now, and let's go ahead. So the moment it is signed, then you can go ahead and start implementing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abraham, and thank you, Mr. Victor, for the question that is guiding us. I just want to have a quick response to the two items that have just been discussed. The one concerning the question, cheapest is the best. I think my own response to it is what Sue is trying to say is more or less saying it's not really about the procurement strategy or the procurement route. It's about what you call the tender success factor. So till now, what we have all considered as a tender success factor is the lowest tender is the successful tender, and we always go with that. So what she's saying is that let us change our approach, let us change what we call the tender success factor and jettison that idea or that concept of cheapest being the best. Let us do what Mr. Abraham has just expanded on, that we should try to answer the question of the employer, the client, or the project. What will make the project to be successful after we have identified all the risk and we have managed the risk and we are trying to respond to all the risk. So in planning a proper response to the risk, it won't be looking for the cheapest, that will be the best. It will be actually answering the question of what will make the project to be successful. And at that time, it might not be the cheapest now. It will be some other factor. So developing those factors will come over time in risk management maturity life. That is one. Then the other response, the one regarding about the risk workshop, is risk workshop should be done not just at the time of tender while we are procuring the tender. Let us look at another situation which happens on almost every project: the issue of variations. So you have started the project and you are going on with the project, then you have variations. So what do we do when we have variation? We still have to have this risk pretender risk workshop, but now you're not having it at pretender, you're having it inside the project. So the client is desirous of adding, changing, modifying some aspect of the project. So what do? We sit with everybody, the contractor, the consultant, everybody involved, and say this is what the employer wants to achieve, this addition, this modification. How do we go about it? Then everybody contributes. Okay, we change this, we can't change this. Oh, the contractor says, no, I cannot start this at this stage. It's going to affect this. I cannot start this. So when you do that, you have a proper understanding of how to change and how to best approach whatever it is that the client wants. And at times, having that kind of discussion or having that kind of workshop might decide, just like Mr. Abraham said, answering the proper question. Maybe the client does not even need that change. Maybe that modification should not even happen the way it's going to happen. Maybe that modification should not even be done by that contractor. The only way you can understand that is having this type of pretender, what's it called now, risk management workshop. And even prior to execution or even issuing an instruction and saying that we want to change some aspect of the project, want to modify some aspect of the project, there should be a meeting in that same regard, colored and painted and structured the same way, where we all come together and say, let us all have a discussion on what represents or how we should proceed regarding this change. Then we can now go ahead with the change. If you're going to issue the instruction, what will be contained in the instruction, and how the cost impact will be done, how the time impact will be done, and how eventually all of that will come into place for us to have a successful project. So that is my own contribution concerning those two items. Do we still have any questions, contributions, additions to the ongoing discussions so that we can call it a wrap, because you have kept us here for some time, and we thank everybody for giving us some part of their evening on Friday when you should have your weekend to come and spend with us on the platform. Thank you very much. Okay, as we don't have any more addition and contribution, I will just have a recap of what we have done today. So we thank Mr. Victor once again for spending his time to put together this brilliant presentation on risk management and its effect on procurement strategies. What he has done today, he has spoken to us about risk, what risk is. He has given us real life examples, showing us about how to fish and why we're considering what is happening on the other side. He also used an example of walking in another person's shoes for you to understand what they carry and how that can affect how we plan and respond to risk. Then he brought it down to construction industry, where he talked about the different type of procurement strategies that we have in the construction industry, from the traditional to the design and build. And he actually spent time going through all of the procurement strategies that most of us have used and the ones that we have not even used, so we can understand more about it: management, contracting, construction management, and the likes. Then he now came to sources of risk. And at this point, I must say that my own part of it, as he started talking about the sources of risk, I got scared and I said, no, I don't want to do construction again. I don't want to be in this industry. It appears to be too risky. You can't even cover all the ground. And that is the fact of the matter. Whether we like it or not, the construction industry and construction and procurement, as the case may be, there are several sources of risk that we, especially the contracts people, the quantity surveyors, must address at the earlier stages of the contract or the project, and even throughout the life of the project. You know, he mentioned several things, you know, incompetence or lack of skills. He mentioned sources from even cultural issues. He mentioned bad behavior. I mean, all list of what can be the source of risk on the project. And there's a part that I like to add to that source of risk, and that is the client as a major source of risk. Because the client can come today and say, I don't even want to do the contract anymore, or I want to change a significant part of the contract, not even bothering on how that will impact the success of the project at the end of the day. So he spoke about success, sources of risk on engineering and construction project. And then he spoke about the effects of poor management, poor risk management, what that can lead to. Now, after we have identified all of this risk and we don't manage it properly, what can happen? Escalation in prices, increase in contract sum, even total failure in the project altogether. You have people drafting contracts that are not even right for the project. And he also mentioned that if you don't manage that risk at that time properly, the chances are very high that you will select the wrong procurement strategy for the wrong for a particular project, and that can lead to failure and all of that. Then he now mentioned the risk management tools that are available to us, where he talked about risk allocation and something about de-risking and something about how we should look at what has happened in this time of pandemic, COVID-19, and in future, how contracts should be written to address things like this. Well, some of the example, especially the things that are suggested by Sue Morse, has to do with things like writing contract where for pandemic, the contractor will have access to time, but not cost, and all of those kind of things. But those are the things that we need to explore. And I really, really appreciate and thank Victor for bringing that for us to discuss here and for us to learn from. That these future suggestions are things that we should look at. If we have not gained anything at all from the discussion today, if anything does not appear new to us, we should look at these future suggestions, because there are materials in there. There are things that we need to ponder on. We need to think about as procurement and construction professional. That how can we take all of these things to manage the risk that we have learned about in the past, and that will continue to be on construction projects. How can we use this seed, I call them seed ideas or seed concept, that we can build upon to help us manage risk better? Risk in procurement, risk in construction, risk in commercial aspect of the project, even risk in the use, because part of the effects of poor risk management, part of it is HSC, part of it is in construction, constructability itself. How it affects that because you have not managed the risk of procurement properly, the contractor is not even able to construct what he said it will do. So all of those kind of things are the things that that we brought upon. And after that, we have had a question and answer session and comments from members on the platform here, where they explained to us further on all the things that Victor has expanded upon, and also responded to question about carrying everybody along, what to do concerning tender, what to do concerning procurement strategy, how we should manage risk, pre-tender risk workshop, the importance of it, the impact on it on the construction process altogether. So that is a wrap on what we have done so far today. And we thank Victor for spending his time and his resources to come and help us and add on to us in our field of quantity surveying and construction and commercial management. We thank you, Mr. Victor, and we thank all of us for spending time on this platform with us. And we hope that we'll continue to have this, I call it enlightenment session in the area of quantity surveying and commercial and construction management, so that we can be better quantity surveyors. It can impact our personal lives and our career generally. So I say thank you, everybody, for coming, and hope to continue to see you and have your time to spend with us, quantity surveyors in Qatar, in the field of professional development. Thank you very much, and hope to see you again very soon. Thank you. We have Mr. Yaya Abdulkadri. He raised his hand. Do you have a comment for us, Mr. Yaya? Or maybe that's just a mistake. So I say thank you, everybody. We hope to see you next time, and have a restful weekend. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Mr. VC. Bye. See you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you around.
Bye.